Yes.
Patience, virtue. We wait.
Careful. Disclaimer.
We write it down.
Ready?
Oh my God.
Just now.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good evening. Today, the process completed another 85 boxes, and the total is now 1,051 boxes completed. So we have passed the 1,000 mark, and we have finished 1,051 boxes. We are disappointed that we have seen no movement towards the establishment of the additional stations as were promised by GCOM. Of course, the establishment of those stations are fundamental to the speed of the process increasing, and I believe that GCOM itself has recognized that we need to increase the speed if we are to come close to the deadline fixed by GCOM, that is the 25 days deadline. As you know, we were promised that we would have had additional stations established. I thought that it would have been done today because I thought that the matter was considered to be one of great urgency. But unfortunately, today has come to an end, and we have seen no movement in that direction. There is an important development which I would like to comment on briefly, and it has to do with an article I read in the Chronicle newspaper in which it is stated that Mr. Harmon wrote to the GCOM chair highlighting the same allegations which they have been making here on a daily basis about dead people voting and about migrating people voting. And the article says that the GCOM chair has invited Mr. Harmon to submit some form of evidence, I don't know what that is, in support of those allegations. And the article further states that Mr. Harmon intends to provide more of such evidence. We in the PPP have a fundamental difficulty with this development because what we are engaged in here is a recounting of the ballots as is stated in the order. I would like you to go back and look at the order, especially in the preambulatory section of the order. It says that on the 3rd of April, I think, a decision was taken by GCOM to recount the ballots cast at the March 2nd, 2020 elections. And the rest of the order contains a procedure of how that recount is to take place. A recount in law, as I said, a recount is not it is a term of art. A recount is done in accordance with certain legal rules. Those legal rules are set out in the provisions of the Representation of the People Act. Nowhere in the order is there any provision for anyone to make allegations of the type that are being made, and worse yet, for there to be some proving and disproving of those allegations. That it is not that we are opposed or we have anything to hide, but this exercise is simply not one that caters for that. And anytime GCOM goes outside of the scope of that recount, GCOM would be exceeding its jurisdiction. GCOM would be acting without jurisdiction. GCOM would be acting ultra vires, and GCOM would be violating the very order that GCOM published and undertook to be governed by. If you read the order, there is absolutely no provision for any proving and disproving of these allegations. There's not even provision for the allegations to be made. When these allegations started to raise their heads in the workstations, we initially objected, and we subsided our objections because we were informed that they are allegations only, and they will be recorded in an observation report for the record of the allegations being made, and perhaps at another forum and in another process those allegations can be addressed. Now we are seeing the chairperson, by inviting evidence, is not only lending credence to those allegations, but the chairperson is now expanding the scope of this recounting exercise far outside of its parameters. And that is wrong. It is unlawful. GCOM's jurisdiction under the Constitution is to conduct an elections, to manage an elections, and to do all things in connection with that process, which includes recounting if the occasion arises for a recount. If you look at the Constitution, Article 163 of the Constitution states very clearly that any allegation of wrongdoing at an election, or any allegation of an unlawful act or omission, or that any part of an election has been unlawfully carried out, those are questions that are exclusively to be dealt with by the High Court only, and in accordance with the National Assembly Validity of Elections Act, Chapter 104. So the High Court, the Constitution, our supreme law, did not invest, or does not invest in GCOM the power to investigate allegations, to hear allegations, to prove and to disprove allegations of the type that are being made. Those are issues that the Constitution vested or vests in the preserve of the judiciary exclusively, and it must be ventilated in accordance with the provisions of the National Assembly Validity of Elections Act, and the procedural vehicle to be used is the elections petition. In any event, practically and pragmatically, GCOM does not have the resources, personnel and otherwise, to hear and determine those complaints. You have to be trained. Those complaints have to be dealt with in accordance with the rules of evidence in a court of law, and a particular standard of proof have to be established. GCOM is moving in a very dangerous direction by going along this path. We intend to write the chairperson tomorrow a letter chronicling and registering our concerns. And we hope that the chairperson will be persuaded against embarking upon this course of action that we feel she is leaning towards. I want to reiterate that the PPP has nothing to hide, and the PPP is not afraid of any form and any type of scrutiny. But we cannot allow this process to be bastardized and be used for a purpose for which it was not conceived and birthed. Because to do so, we would be acting unlawfully, GCOM would be acting unlawfully, and the whole exercise would erupt in chaos and confusion. So we thought that we will register our firm reservations and objections to what the chairperson did, and we will write her tomorrow, as I said, and convey our deep and abiding concerns. So I will stop here, and I will invite your questions. I'm not. Madam, the Constitution itself has vested that power, that exclusive power of determining allegations, hearing and determining allegations, to an institution called the judiciary. The Constitution will not exclusively, the same exclusivity that GCOM enjoys in relation to the management of elections, the same exclusivity the Constitution vests in the High Court to determine allegations of irregularities and illegalities relevant to an election. So the separation of powers doctrine will prohibit GCOM from trespassing upon the functional domain and functional province of the judiciary. The Article 162, as wide a power as it will give, as it has given GCOM, it will never give GCOM a power to violate the Constitution itself. So no, that article does not vest GCOM with the authority to usurp what are judicial functions and usurp duties and responsibilities of the judiciary. No constitution would.
But wasn't it an allegation of alleged irregularity that led us to this process, even outside of the court ruling, that Mr. Mingo the 13th did not comply with Section 84 of the Representation of the People's Act?
First of all, madam, there was a court ruling against Mingo
On the 5th.
on the 5th, in relation to the declaration on the 5th, there was a court ruling. And Mingo got certain directions from the court, and Mingo did this identical thing and made another declaration on the 13th.
But the court never ruled that he did that.
The GCOM admitted that it did so. And yes, GCOM held a meeting and said that they will do a recount. That is why we are doing a recount. And, hold on, the issue of the validity of the recount was raised in the Ulita Moore matter. It was also raised in the full court, in the High Court before Justice Holder. It was raised in the full court, and it was raised in the Court of Appeal. And you will recall that the Court of Appeal said that GCOM has the power and authority to proceed to do the recount, but it must not do it under the supervision of CARICOM. It must carry it out on its own volition and accord.
But the court never ruled on the declaration that was made on the 3rd, and Justice Franklin
I have pointed out to you that a fraudulent act is a fraudulent act.
Sir, but
It is fraud ab initio. Lord, then I cited I don't want to talk too much law here, but I cited to you a statement from an eminent law lord named Lord Denning, when he said that it is only for convenience that you go to court to set aside that which is fraudulent. That fraud vitiates everything. Fraud unravels everything. An act that is fraudulent is an act that is void ab initio. From the inception, you don't need a court to vitiate it. GCOM, guided by that principle, proceeded to do that recount. But it is a recount only. GCOM cannot convert itself into a court and hold a trial to determine allegations of illegal voting and dead people voting. It cannot. And there is no amount of questions that you will ask here that will justify or change that reality.
Sir, I didn't see fraudulent, any fraud, electoral fraud being mentioned in the order. It says that some requests for recount was either rejected, placed in abeyance.
And don't you and you are unaware that Mingo was accused of committing fraud?
I don't have any evidence to suggest that.
Oh Lord.
About that.
So why are we doing the recount?
Because the chairperson gives a commitment
And why did she give a commitment?
to
And the
do
president
a
and the
recount.
opposition leader.
Are you
And the
telling
president and the opposition leader
Yeah, and
agreed
why?
to
Why?
do a recount in all districts.
Why?
Because they sense that, well, there
Some were placed in
irregularities.
abeyance, some were rejected.
So hold on.
some were
Are you
disqualified.
members of the press telling me that you are not persuaded that Mingo committed a fraud?
You, sir, that's not how we're placed.
No, I'm asking you.
No, you don't get to ask us.
No, I can't ask you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Nandlall, we're on day 18.
Yes.
How does the party plan to approach the situation of the recount being extended? I know Mr. Ali, your presidential candidate, spoke about the recommendations the party made. We haven't seen a decision yet on GCOM. Are you still sticking to the additional 2 workstations, increasing the hours, shift system, and if I may ask, would you still stick to probably a 7-day extension to the 25 days?
We are hoping, first of all, that the recount exercise is concluded at its earliest possible time. If it meets the deadline, we are absolutely happy. If it does not, and we are working every day in getting GCOM to establish more stations and enforce its working orders and hours so that we can get maximum output out of the hours. Today again, the containers were closed at 5:30 and the boxes were not released for counting at 5:30. That we believe can easily be adjusted and extended to 6 o'clock as we had proposed, and that will bring greater speed to the system. If the 25-day deadline is not met, of course, we are not opposed to an extension. We hope that it will not be a long extension because, as I said, would like this process to be completed with every convenient dispatch and
Do
speed.
you have a timeline for that extension, or you're
Well, I am going to defer to what our presidential candidate said. I think he indicated a week. But if it goes beyond that, I'm sure that I cannot imagine that we would not consider, supporting an extension. Because at the end of the day, we would like the process to conclude.
Mr. Nandlall, going back to your earlier statement, you said you're going to, PPP is going to write the Recount chair. Now, if they continue or they proceed with this decision to accept evidence from the coalition,
we
would the PPP then go to
we will have to cross that bridge when we reach it. We are approaching issues in stages,
But nothing is
and we have always done things in the civilized way and in courteous ways. So we are going to go one step at a time and see where it takes us.
but nothing is off the table at this time. Indirectly.
I mean, nothing is off the table.
if that option is not off?
I have said repeatedly that in any society governed by the rule of law, and I would like to believe that we are still governed by the rule of law, exploring one's legal options is a civilized and democratic right that one must always have in one's repertoire.
Mr. Nandlall, President Granger has said that his party is prepared to accept the results coming out from the recount. Is it the same for the KP as well?
Yes, we have said so too. That's why we are here every day.
You have a question?
Thank you very much.